Good morning, everybody. I am super excited to welcome Elaina with Kurtz and Peckham PC this morning. Elaina and I met through a mutual friend that used to work for her, Sasha, and eventually Elaina and I kind of connected. And ultimately, she ended up helping my sister through a divorce and quite a few of my other friends. And the feedback from her has been about her has been absolutely positive. And I am super excited to have her join me this morning. Elaina has been fantastic in helping a lot of my friends and my sister and navigate the intricacies of family law, estate planning. And I do know that her company also does criminal law, which has been fantastic to be able to help navigate through a lot of tricky and difficult situations. So, Elaina, I am super appreciative. I know how busy you are. And I just appreciate you taking the time to meet with us this morning and just kind of share about you and your business and how you can best serve a lot of the people that I come in contact with and that might be watching this YouTube channel.
Okay, definitely. Thank you for having me today. And definitely, I do a lot of family law, and that's what I've been focusing my practice on. I do some estate planning, which I actually prefer because it's not high conflict, and the people aren't going through a terrible process because divorce is not a fun process. The what listeners have ever been through it, they've thought about it. It's a tough decision to decide to proceed to divorce. It is like a death, unfortunately, is how professionals akin it to. But my goal has always been to help people going through that navigate through it and well, with respect and dignity, because it is, you're putting everything out there and everything that you built up in your marriage and before is up for grabs unless you have a prenuptial agreement. And even then, people want to fight the prenup. So, yeah, so that's that I do that and I enjoy doing that. And although I prefer my estate planning, I really do like to help people go through that, and that's my goal is to really help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen just in a couple of different situations, you really have helped people navigate. I think we've got a situation that we're kind of navigating right now where there's tenants in a home and trying to get those people out of it so that the home can be sold. And you really are just such a pivotal part of helping not only support like the client, but also kind of advise them and show them like here's what our next steps are. And one of the things that I hear frequently is how well you communicate. So can you share with me how you got started in your business and what's taken you kind of down the family law, and estate planning path?
Yeah. So after I graduated from law school, I was still working at a bank and I applied to Kurtz and Peckham. And I was very grateful to have this opportunity, mostly because as a new attorney, you expect to work all the time. And you see it in movies and things where it can get like that. But Kurtz and Peckham, I was working part-time. I was able to transition out of my full-time career into law and slowly build up. I started in traffic law and civil defense, and then I moved on, to more criminal cases and estate planning and transitioned over to family law. I think I was just thrown into it. I had a cousin who's going through a divorce and I helped him through that. And then I had a friend. And as I started doing that more, that's where my focus became or where it came from is because of just helping family and friends. And that's what I've been doing mostly for the last, I would say, 6 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to me how once you kind of start the topic of divorce and separating and navigating kind of that whole path, how actually common it is. And there used to be a lot of like, I feel like shame and things about it. And now I kind of feel like, well, it's a very difficult thing for us to navigate through with our clients. I feel like it is something that's more of a topic that people can talk about and have conversations about. And one of the things that I find impressive is your ability to kind of normalize something that is unknown for people. And I know personally, you have helped one of my friends through an abusive situation and leaving her husband. And that was incredibly difficult. And the support that you provided her through there, I feel was absolutely phenomenal. And it's to me, it's just interesting to see when you begin to have these conversations and provide opportunities for people to ask those questions, then they're kind of willing to begin navigating, what does it look like for me to separate? What does it look like for me to begin the divorce? And so I guess that would be one of the questions I have for you, because somebody who is watching this is probably thinking about, what do I want to do, or what do I need to do to be able to take the steps to begin the process of separating? Is there maybe a three-step like preliminary process or three steps to beginning the process that maybe you could share with us that might be able to be helpful for somebody while they're thinking about this?
Yeah. That's really tough because I think the first step is accepting that's your decision. Acknowledging this is what you want to do, because I think a lot of people, they think about it, it's on their mind. Even happily married people think what life would be like if they were divorced. We've all been there. So understanding what truly the first step is accepting that this is the step you want to take. And if this is what you really want to do, then this next step is just filing the petition. Truly. And obviously, there's a lot of people who have different situations. They have the children that are involved. So, what do I do with my children? We live together. I don't have an alternative option. What should I do if I'm going through divorce and we live together? That's tough. And if I'm not working or my spouse isn't working, how do we financially do this? And I think that's the biggest hurdle people face is financially, how do I split my ties? Because sometimes you do. You are not only managing your own home, but you may pay maintenance on your spouse to have a rental while the divorce is going through. So if you can build up a reserve of money to help you, so when you do move out, you have money to rent a place or to deal with potential maintenance and things, just depending on the situation. So that's
Okay.
2 steps, right? No, no, that's 3. It is acceptance, it's filing the petition and having money. So having money first if you have it. And if you don't, I read a book on how to accept divorce or if that's the decision, and it's if you can look around where you're living and just walk away and not worry about things taking things with you, then you probably are ready to take that next step. So some people are okay to walk away. And
Yeah.
if you're okay to walk away, you're ready.
Yeah.
So knowing that, sometimes it's not going to be easy. The first few 6 months, it's going to be tough. No matter your situation, 6 months, it's going to be tough and being ready for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Watching quite a few people that I care about having come out on the other end of it has been it has been, you're right. 6 months, a year was incredibly hard. All the firsts, all the it's much like death, right? All of those things, but now starting to see where they're coming out on the other side and starting to thrive again has been absolutely just amazing to watch. So, I guess one of the questions I have is, if somebody is kind of exploring this is an option and they have questions, right? Everybody has questions. Well, what about this? What about my inheritance I'm getting from my grandpa?
Mhm.
Things like that. What does it cost for someone to have a consultation with you or set up a time to kind of just maybe just all I want are just to be able to ask you questions and kind of know what I need to do or what steps I need to take?
Mhm. Yeah. So We offer different, I guess, options. So the first one, we do a free 15-minute consult. It's not an advice session, but it's more you tell me what's going on in in your life, and I'll tell you what I can help you with and what steps we need to take to start it. So that's a complimentary step. Is
Okay.
talking to me in the beginning, see what we can do for you. If you want simply advice, if you're thinking, I want to do this on my own because I don't have the ability to pay a lawyer to do it, or I feel like me and my spouse can do this together, we just need a little guidance. I think that's very smart. We would just charge advice, and that would be based on the hourly rate.
Okay.
And the other option is if you ultimately wanted us to do the paperwork, but you want to file it or they wanted to file it, then we can just offer well, it's going to be the hourly rate, but it's a smaller retainer because we're just doing the paperwork and we're not going to court. So
Okay.
there's a few options that I present or I give to people that I talk with. And it really just depends on their needs and what they can afford.
Okay. And then obviously, I kind of see a fourth option, which is to hire you
Hmm.
as their attorney to help them kind of navigate all the intricacies of, you know,
Yes. Hmm.
okay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's huge. Now, I kind of want to shift just a little bit to estate planning because I think as we're starting to get older, right? Like, a lot of us, I don't even know how old you are, but a lot of us are in our 40s and getting older, and our parents are starting to get older. And there's just a lot of questions that people have about estates and planning and wills and all of those kind of different things that quite honestly, like those ideas and those thoughts never crossed my mind when I was in my 20s. Um,
Yes.
but now they're starting to cross my mind, and things that I'm going to be honest, I don't have a will, I don't have anything I know. And I know that I need to do these things. So I'm kind of asking for myself, but I know I'm not alone. I know that there's a lot of us that just feel very overwhelmed at even just starting the process. So, can we talk a little bit about what the estate planning looks like and how does somebody start that process and what that looks like?
Yeah, that one is much simpler than the process of a divorce, but you start off with calling us and we have a form that we prepared to help you think about what you want to do with your estate. And then we'll use that to build your estate planning document. So the primary documents you need is your last will and testament. I know a lot of people want to wait until they are retiring or some medical thing is going on, and I would like to say that all of us are going to live until a ripe old age, but some of us don't. And people die young and they die without a will. And no, the state is not going to get all of your money because you died without a will, but it's not going to go based on your wishes, right? I'm dealing with that right now. And it is very complicated, the law and how things are distributed when you die without a will. And it is impacted based on if you have children from another spouse, if your child predeceased you, and if they have children. So your children may not get the percentage you want them to have.
Yeah.
And so a will itself, it's good to say what you want to have happen. It can be as simple as you writing it down in the meantime, but you really want to be able to prepare one so you tell your personal representative that you elect, this is what I want my property to be, or this is how I want it to be distributed. You could do charities, you could give percentages, or you can give it all to one person. So the will
Yeah.
itself, whether you have $5 or a million, 2 million, whatever, it's good to have a will,
Yes.
regardless of age, because we're all going to die. So that's the first document. Very important. You don't have it, we'll get you it. Don't die without a will. My boss, Jude Ramirez, is an attorney here, and he doesn't have a will. So you're not the only one. Had this conversation where I yelled at him. I said, "You need to get your will." So,
Yeah.
um,
You're like, I'm just going to call him out. It's totally fine.
totally, totally. So your lawyers do it too. Professionals who draft documents like this don't do it either because we all think, "I'll wait, I'll be fine."
Yeah.
And so planning. We want to plan ahead, plan for the future. We can always change it if things change in your life. If you remarry, you have another kid, we can always change it. So the last will and testament is a primary one. Along with that, we do a power of attorney, which is good to have in case something happens to you where you can't make decisions on your own. That prevents your agent or your elected, it could be your spouse, it could be your child, it could be a friend, from having to go to the court to get authority over you, to act. Financially, you might be incapacitated. In ours, you're incapacitated, you're missing, you're incarcerated. They can't something, or you're out of the country and you can't come back. You have somebody that can start paying your bills, start handling your finances to make sure that you don't go into foreclosure, bankruptcy, whatever it may be. So the general power of attorney is the next document. And then the medical power of attorney. So then if you get into where you can't make medical decisions for yourself, you have somebody that you elect that can make those medical decisions. And it's good to think about when your medical agent, we always want to default to our spouse or our sister, but they may not always be the best option. Because, for example, I have my aunt. I said, "Would you be my medical agent if my husband can't? I want to be cremated." And that's against her beliefs. And she's, "I will not cremate you." And I said, "Well, you're not my agent then."
You're like, no, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I'll be dead and I won't care. But, you want your
Yep.
agent to be able to manage your wishes and actually act upon your wishes. And so you want to have a conversation with them. The other thing, I did a seminar and the guy said, with a presenter, basically, for your medical agent, you want to make sure that they can fight for you like a tiger, standing by your side, making sure you're getting your medicine, making sure you're getting the care you need, but not so much that they're being kicked out of the hospital. So you want somebody that's going to advocate for you, but not be crazy about it where they're getting kicked out. So
Yes.
your spouse may be a hothead, don't have them. So that's the other one. And then the living will. So if you become in a state where you are terminally ill, incapacitated, in a persistent vegetative state, how you want your artificial nourishment and life sustaining treatments. If you want it to continue forever, stop immediately, or over a certain time. So it's not only the will when you die, it's planning for if something happens to you where you can't make decisions on your own as well. So, very important things to have. And, sometimes estate planning and divorce, sometimes they overlap. You plan on, you want to give your child your house. So, we quit claim it to them. Well, then that puts them in a spot where if they're getting a divorce, now that's a marital asset. Or
Yeah.
you add them to the title, and now we're facing division of your parents' asset that because you own it. So it's always, I kind of have a conversation when I have people that want to do a quick claim to their children. I always say, well, if they're married, are you sure you want to do this? And this is a risk. So
That's
sometimes
smart.
they all go hand in hand.
Yeah, I just referred you someone who is going through a very similar situation, and I think they'll be reaching out to you. And she's just, yeah, they quit claimed him onto the deed, her brother, like 20 years ago, and then he died, and now the wife is coming after the parents' home and is forcing the sale of it. And I was like, I said, once they quit claimed him onto the deed, I was like, you need to get yourself an attorney and see if you can fight for the house. I was like, but I can't help you. There's nothing
Yeah.
I can do except encourage you to find the best person. And that was you. So
Well, thank you. I look forward to helping or being able to
yeah.
try.
One of the things that I did want to talk about was your military service. I feel like that when I very first found that out about you, it kind of actually shocked me a little bit because, you just, I guess in your head, it's kind of like people think of real estate agents as a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And people think of attorneys as a certain way. And so I am very curious about your military service and what that looks like. And how does that play out with raising a family and everything?
Yeah. Um, so I am in the Colorado Air National Guard. I've been in the Air Force for Well, since 2014, so 10 years. I hit my 10 years and now I'm on the downward towards retirement, right? 10 more years, little under 10. And I've done I have not done full years of active duty. So I've always been a reservist, as they call them, or in this case, a guardsman. And so I've always done part time Air Force. I've done extended tours helping out different bases that were in need or a shortage of attorneys. So I've done 6 months here, a couple weeks there, so I've always tried to help out in that way. I did a lot of that before family, right? Before children. And now that I've had children, it is very difficult to navigate that, even though it's the weekend. The weekends are when sports is happening, birthday parties are occurring. And so it is tough to balance life with the Air Force. In the Air Force, I've done two different roles, obviously, as with any company you change. I used to be the defense counsel, so the area defense counsel for the guardsmen. I would help them with their administrative discharges and adverse actions that were occurring. I found that to be really rewarding,
Okay.
because I like client contact. I like talking to people. I like trying to help them.
Yeah.
And I really did like that. I ended up that was harder because it was more of the doing the work during the work week, and then I had my first child, and I realized this is kinda difficult. I'm gonna transition back over to just working in the legal office, and in that capacity, I'll say a lot of the times it's meetings. We go to a lot of meetings and trainings, but we're also doing the estate planning and giving advice because the benefits include legal advice to the guardsmen.
Okay.
Processing adverse actions, so, when people are doing bad things and we're gonna help the commander start the paperwork.
Mm.
And, it is rewarding because, like you said, you expect me to just be one type of person, and even I was at Lowe's a while ago, and I pulled out my military ID for the discount, and she's, "You're in the military? You don't look like you would be in the military." And I'm like, "Oh,
Oh,
you." Like, I don't know what to say to that, but,
no. You're like,
um
thanks. You're welcome.
exactly. It was awkward, but it I do feel proud of being able to serve, and that's something that, although it is tough and I've thought about getting out while I have my young children, I keep pushing through,
Yeah.
and there's the reward of it and helping, when I can and doing what I can. It's not the traditional military member that you think of. And I think that's where a lot of us in the JAG Corps, we don't give ourselves enough credit because when you think military, you think of front lines. Well, we are frontline officers, but we're going to be doing the back behind the lines things.
Yeah.
Although we are frontline officers, we're still trying to help people with their legal issues. And when you get out to deployment, that's a whole nother beast, which has nothing to do with a little to do with adverse action, but mostly to do with international law and rules of engagement. So it's a lot more complex than the base legal office.
Wow.
Mhm.
I'm just so impressed with you being able to balance all of those things. Like to me, it's just super impressive. You're able to navigate all these different areas and run a successful, family law, you know, business. I'm just very impressed by the fact that you're able to keep it all together because I'd be like, I can't do all these things. So,
No,
um,
it's a struggle. The struggle is real.
yeah. I think once you add kids to things, it kind of just complicates everything, But I mean, I talk about all the time how we as moms, like it lights a different fire in us.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of plates that I juggle and a lot of things that I do. And I do it all because I want to not only set the example for my kids, but I want to show them like how hard you work really can change your life and impact the lives around you.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I just wanted to touch on your military service because I am super impressed by it. And every time I'm telling somebody about you, I'm like, oh my gosh, and she's totally like in the Air Force, and I think that's super cool. So a third area that your company works for or works with is criminal law. And I know that you said you don't do criminal law yourself, but that you can refer to people within your company that do it.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit about what that criminal law might look like or the areas you could serve there?
Yeah. So, like I said, in the past, I've done DUI. So, depending on the client, I can help. Sometimes my family law clients or some other type of like estate planning, sometimes they get into trouble and as an attorney, they may request me. So I've done some DUIs and misdemeanors, but Jude Ramirez is the attorney that does the criminal law, which includes misdemeanors, DUIs, felonies, things like that. I always say that if I get into trouble, I will be hiring Jude because I know he'll get me off. He has had success in his cases where if I have to take it to trial, I'm pretty sure he can convince them to either dismiss it or lower charges. So I definitely highly recommend Jude. He's great. We do, like I said, different types of cases. And I will admit, my criminal clients have been the best. Even when I was talking about doing defense work for the military, most of the time they're humble, they're going through a bad time. They're really good people.
Yeah.
And even though they're getting into trouble, things happen. Sometimes, you know, one of the biggest things I always tell as we're going through divorce is if you guys are living together, you might want to keep a recorder on you because highest times of divorce, of domestic violence issues and criminal charges is related to people going through a divorce, living together in the same household. So it kind of bleeds over. So we do a lot of domestic violence and criminal cases.
I always really try to explain to people when I'm helping them sell their home, in divorce situations, or even, we've had situations where people have ended their lives and we've had to sell the homes. And, you know, eh, I just try to tell people like, everybody goes through stuff and everybody, is navigating such a messy life. There's never any judgment that comes from me or comes from anybody that I work with, and that's one of the things that I feel like has been the best part about working with you, Elena, is when I refer people to you, I feel like you don't judge where they come from or the situations that they're in. And, there have been some messy divorces, and you have just really encouraged them, like, what the end goal is, which is typically what I have to do in the real estate process, is yes, we could sit and we could argue with somebody over $10,000, but what is the end goal? The end goal is to be done with this and kind of finish it off. And I think you know exactly which person I'm talking about, where you were
Yeah,
just like, what is the end goal in this situation? And just counseling her through that and helping her to see that light at the end of the tunnel was really how we got through the whole real estate process altogether,
mhm,
of just once this is done, you can be finished, you can be done, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore.
yeah,
And that has been the most beautiful thing that I've seen, that you're able to just help people to see what our goal is, how we're going to help them achieve that, and then kind of keep them on task, because it is very it's emotionally messy. It's very
definitely.
difficult, to navigate through.
Yeah, and people they want to fight because they think that they're going to get more or they want to, I don't know, maybe they're, for whatever reason, some people just want to fight. And my recommendation has always been, and you'll hear judges say it, the best thing for a family to do, husband and wife, partner, whatever, is to work together, especially with children, because a judge is going to hear maybe 2 hours per side, and they're going to make life changing decisions for you.
Of course.
And if you can work together, at least limitedly, that's always gonna be better for you in the long run, but also financially. So then you don't have to pay lawyers to do all this work, and you're probably gonna end up coming about the same.
Exactly, exactly.
And I do try to explain that to clients is when it's worth fighting, then it's worth fighting. And if it's not, this is what the risk is. It's you could end up paying, and some clients like, I'd rather pay the attorney. I'd rather pay you than let her have my money.
Yeah,
So it just depends on your situation and what you're willing to do and what you want to do. But sometimes depending, it's better to just walk away.
yeah,
Even if you're giving a little more, then
yep,
I always tell my clients, even if you give a little more right now, you're gonna be better off in a year or 2 than you would have been had you waited, an
yes,
extra 6 months.
yes,
So, it is tough,
absolutely.
but yes, I appreciate the kind words and the knowledge of the help that I'm giving because that's
Well,
my biggest
I
thing, I wanna
think
be available.
yeah, your expertise, and I guess it's not only your expertise, but your caretaking, right? It's your words. And it's not really just words. Like, I don't like one of the biggest concerns that I have when I refer people to client or to, partners or people that I work with is the biggest concern is, do you take care of them like I take care of them? And every single person that I have sent your way have all told me that you've been responsive, you took care of them, you supported them, and while the end result on a couple of them was not what they wanted, right? They do in hindsight now go, we did everything we possibly could. And sometimes that's the best you can do is,
Yeah.
just it's everything possibly you can do. And you come out and you shake loose we call it the dead weight. And you kind of just move on with your life.
Yeah,
So, what would
definitely.
you say is what is the most difficult or challenging part of your job?
Yeah. I think the biggest in all of my roles, in the military and in civilian life is the lack of control. As attorneys, you think, oh, I want to be an attorney so I can have control. I can help a client. I can do a good job for them and get them exactly what they want. But we don't have that control. Then you go to the judge and you're think, well, maybe I'll be a judge. So then I can have more control. I'm the decider of all of it. And and then you get to the criminal kid judge, he doesn't have the control. He has control on sentencing, but on not on the decisions. So I think that's my biggest hurdle is realizing I don't have control. I can do the best I can and advocate for my client, but ultimately the client's in control. And when the client leaves the control to the judge is the decider. And sometimes I disagree with the judge.
Yeah.
And that to me is the most frustrating is like the judge has discretion and they made that decision. I can't change. I mean, there's nothing we can do. I mean, obviously there's like the appeal and things like that, but I think that's my biggest struggle is the control.
Yeah.
It's I really want to have control. I want to tell my client this is what's going to happen, this is how it's going to run, and this is where we can, but there's that little section in the law that says judges have discretion.
You're like, could we just erase that part, get rid
I
of it?
know. Yeah.
What would you say is the most rewarding or like the best part of your job?
Mhm. It's the clients. It's the personal contact. I do love who I work with, and a lot of almost every single one of my clients. There's the ones that are tougher, but
We always have the outlier, right?
yeah, the outliers. But the rest of them, it's just even though they're going through a divorce, they're at their worst. And yes, I've gotten yelled at, and I've had to step back and say, I know you are going through a lot right now and you have a choice. If you're not happy with me, then we'll get you somebody you can be happy with. But right now, these are the steps we have to take. And they'll step back and say, oh, wait a minute. Okay. It is emotional. And I think being able to help them through that I will admit, if you are going through a tough time and you want somebody else, that's okay. I understand that completely. Thankfully, I've never been where the client has ultimately been like, "I don't want you." It's being able to understand, yes, we're going through one of the toughest times of your life. We are talking about children, money, life, stability. It's stressful. And sometimes I feel like, yes, sometimes I'm talking to the client and it may be where I'm a little more like a therapist than I am a lawyer. But I think being able to help people through that, I won't, well, I'm better because I get to say this is what the steps are. I kind of thought about being a therapist in my earlier life. And I realized that I like it better in this role because I can tell someone, okay, you're not being very smart about this. Let's rethink this. So that it's client contact, being able to give them the service they need
Yeah.
and deserve. Because I think a lot of the times we have attorneys that take on way too many cases, and that's really good for their bottom line. But then they're not responsive to their clients. They're not helping them navigate that. And I pride myself on being responsive, being available, trying to help people when they need it. Because sometimes a client calls because something's really stressing them out,
Yeah.
and trying to be available to them, even in the same day, maybe not right at that point, but being available. I think that not only helps them through the process, but it gives them a sense of I don't stability or a sense of
Maybe it
knowing.
helps them a little bit have
Yeah,
control. Feel like they
I
have a
think
little
so.
bit of control.
Exactly, because if they don't have somebody helping them, that they hired me, they're paying good money for me to be available for them and to help them, and so I pride myself on being that person to help them, to be available, and I just that's the biggest thing is rewarding is my clients.
I think in very similar ways, our businesses align in that way. I frequently like joke with people that I'm like the unpaid therapist. I'm your real estate agent, right? But I'm
Yeah,
like the unpaid therapist. And I think that I provide a sense of stability in what's a very difficult and tumultuous time, right? And so just
definitely.
being that kind of landing post. And I do, again, like you, I try to be very responsive and I try to take care of, my clients and their needs. And sometimes it's just a matter of reaching back out and being like, yes, I totally hear you. I understand. We'll get going on that,
Mm,
or here's what my thoughts are on that. So I think in a lot of ways we have very similar industries in that way of, but I also think maybe it's just our personalities of why we do well in this business is because we actually enjoy taking care of people and supporting them through hard times. And, hopefully they come back to you for, estate planning after they've navigated divorce
yeah.
and something like that. And hopefully they come back to me to sell another home or buy another home
Yeah,
today. So I just have appreciated just the information that you've shared with us today. And I feel like I have hundreds of questions I could ask you. So maybe in the future we could do
yeah,
maybe like a deep dive into, like separation and divorce, and then maybe
mhm,
do a deep dive into estate planning, like maybe estate planning 101 for people and just kind of give some very like general guidelines for them.
yeah,
Because I feel like providing people the information really will ultimately benefit all of us in the long run.
mhm,
I've
definitely.
personally seen a couple of situations this year where people have passed with no wills and their homes are now tied up in probate. And so my goal is really just to provide as much information for people out there as I can give them and ultimately help get you more business and help my clients to protect themselves and their assets.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
Elena, how could somebody get in touch with you if they're interested in having you, and maybe they have a question like, hey, you talked about, family law and estate planning, but I would like to see if you can help me with this situation. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best step is to call the office. The number is 303-893-3045. From there, our awesome receptionist slash legal assistant, we're transitioning her over to Sasha's old job, is going to be taking the call, and she's wonderful. Her name is Aaliyah. So when they talk to Aaliyah, Aaliyah will schedule a time to talk with me. And that's the best time because I'm terrible at managing my calendar and I rely heavily on her doing that. And always email too. You can email me at elaina at kurtzpeckham.com. But we also have the office line, which is what the receptionist is going to pull from for scheduling appointments. And that's OFICE at kurtzpeckham.com.
Fantastic. We will have that information in our YouTube comments below so that if anybody wants to get in contact with you, they'll also be able to get it there. I really appreciate your time this morning, Elena. I know how busy you are, and I'm just very thankful and appreciative that you took this time to meet with me this morning.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad we were able to schedule it. I'm
Sounds great. You
happy
have a
to
great
talk.
day.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you.